I'm happy to bring in Justin Joyner, the associate head coach at St. Mary's College. Justin, how's it going? How's the off season been so far? And what's been going on?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Zach. I really appreciate you having me on. I know it's been sort of long overdue. But yeah, no, it's great to be here. And off season's great. I think specifically at St. Mary's, it's just a great time. The spring and the summer is a great time. You don't have the pressures of necessarily having to try and win games, and you get to just work with your guys and develop your guys and see them make growth as players. It's kind of what our program's about. So it's a great time at St. Mary's, and yeah, I mean, for us, it's there's obviously recruiting and all the things that go into it, but it's been a really good spring.
So, so let's talk a little bit about we'll recap the season a bit, and obviously like back to back NCAA tournament appearances, round of 32 in both of those years, uh, have have really like strong. We've talked over and over about that senior trio of Dukas, Bowen, and Logan, who are so incredibly important to the success of that program. Aiden Mahaney obviously coming in and being almost an instant star. What kind of have you kind of have been able to take stock of what this season was? What has this meant for what has this meant for the program? And then what who are maybe some of the guys that have like you've started to see like start to develop maybe more so than maybe the ones we don't like pay as much attention to.
Sure, yeah. I mean, well, just to talk about the season, you're talking about you're 27-8, you're WCC co-champs, you're 5 seed for the second straight year, it's NCAA tournament second round. So I think there's a lot to be proud of. Obviously, and it's crazy. Like when I got to St. Mary's, this program was so you just the national draw to it was the offensive firepower, and the last 3 years it's totally been our defense, and this year we're top 10 defensively in the country, and obviously we finished number 11 in the net. So I think for us, we just feel like we're in a really good place, and we feel like we're knocking on the door. You look at some of the programs that are. You look at San Diego State; they're playing the national championship. We went head to head with them this year and got and beat them. They beat us in the past. They're a really good program. We have a ton of respect for them, but we know that we're a bounce away here and there from maybe having a chance to do that. And I think for us this year, it was really, it started with our leadership. We had high level leadership. Obviously, from our seniors, it was Logan, it was Dukas, it was Bowen. Those guys are really quality leaders, and they do it in their own way, but they're special that way. So to have those guys the last couple of years, you obviously had Kuzi the year before, who was in there with our leadership core. Toss was in there with our leadership core. We've had a really high level leadership who certainly raised the bar at St. Mary's. And so for us as a program, we feel like we're knocking on the door, and we have Dukas back, and it's going to be great, and we have a really good core group of guys coming back. So I think the program's in a really good place.
It was an interesting thing, at least like as coming into this year. Obviously, like the bench wasn't all that deep, but the one thing kind of saw that was almost a very different from years past was that there was maybe a bit more reliance upon freshmen coming into this year. The fact that Mahaney had to step in and play a lot of significant minutes. The fact that you had Josh Jefferson come in and play a lot of significant minutes. Harry Wessel's coming in and playing a fair amount. Kind of talk about like almost like this balance of you had like the veterans who had been there a while, but there was also a pretty significant reliance upon some of the youngsters and how this team was able to balance that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, to touch on kind of our core older group, you had guys like Logan Johnson, had guys like Kyle Bowen, you had guys like Dukas, those guys who'd been in wars and seen it at a really high level. You had those guys leading the charge, right? And I mean, Logan had an awesome year. You're talking about the defensive player of the year. You're talking about, first team all league guy. He's our primary facilitator this year. And he really brought a hard hat to every game we played in. So, we had great leadership with him. We had great leadership with Bowen. I think Bowen was one of the best defenders in the country in terms of defensive win shares. I think at one point he was like top five. So like really special leadership there. And then Dukas as well, just like toughness, grit, do your job every night. You had those guys that kind of they could carry the burden, so to speak.
Mhm.
And then you had your other pieces that were super important with Mitchell Saxon. I mean, the jump he made from his sophomore to his junior year. It's pretty special. Now, that's the great thing about St. Mary's is, we kind of
Yeah.
saw it coming. I'm not going to say we saw him being a first team all league guy, but we saw it coming. We knew he had a really good player, and we knew he had all the makings to have a heck of a junior year, and he did that. And then yeah, you had some freshmen that had to play for you. You had Mahaney, who, I mean, he's just kind of a dude. He's just one of those guys that can play. He competes, he plays, he's got the clutch gene. Um, what the best thing with Aiden I thought this year was his ability to just kind of stay ready and like be ready for the moment, and his overall approach. Like, it's hard when you're 18, 19 years old to understand what college basketball is and how hard it can be. And at our level, you kind of got to come close to winning every game. You got to throw a really good pitch. So for him to be able to bring it every night, certainly he had the support of the older guys and other guys around him. But for him to kind of treat it like a pro and be ready to go every night, I thought was really special for a young player. And similarly with Joshua Jefferson, who when he got here, he didn't get the summer. He had surgery, so he didn't really get a full summer with us. So he kind of came on a little bit later. But I think the talent and the ability to play is pretty clear. Like, he has a great feel. He's good on
Mhm.
both ends of the ball. He can shoot. He can score. He can pass. He's really confident. He's got a great demeanor to him. So I think he's a really good, exciting player in the future. And then Wessels, with his size and his strength and his toughness and grit, I think the future is really, really bright from our young players. And I think in large part it's because our older guys kind of led the way and raised the bar and showed them what it's supposed to look like.
And I mean, I'm thinking about just this season because one of the other things we talk about the talent that's on this team that's across the league, like the last few years, like the talent level has just been raised, and it's not just Gonzaga; it's been up and down this league. It feels like every, maybe more so than maybe ever, that every night was a battle in this league because every team had a all league potential guy on their team or one or two of them, and just kind of talk about like just the depth of the talent in the WCC, because a lot of times, especially nationwide, it kind of gets overlooked of like how much talent is actually in this league. Because you look at what USF was able to bring with like Roberts and Shabazz, or like Santa Clara having what looks like it's going to be back to back first round NBA picks. Gonzaga, obviously, we know about them. Portland has guys who can play. It's like it really seemed like that night in night out. It's like there were no easy nights
Yeah.
this time around.
Yeah. No, you better be ready to play. And that wasn't the case when I got in the league in 2017, 2018. That wasn't the case, but I think, there's a lot of factors. Obviously, there's really good programs in our league. There's really good coaching staffs in our league. So that's the first factor. I think the other factor is, once you have really good programs that start doing well and you start getting multiple teams in the NCAA tournament, it's going to help you in recruiting. And the landscape of recruiting, it's obviously it's high school guys, but it's the portal as well. And I think the WCC is a really attractive place for guys coming out of the portal for sure. And yeah, I mean, you got pros in this league. Obviously, Gonzaga's got pros. We've had pros. Pepperdine's had multiple NBA guys now, and now Santa Clara and USF as well. So there's really good players in our league, and that's a testament to the programs in our league. And I think it's also the testament to the WCC as a whole. It's a good league. It's always been a good league, but I think now it's certainly ticking up, and that's good for the Gales, no question.
Yeah. I mean, just it really, and it's exciting, I think, for the fans too, just to kind of see like that every night. It's like there's almost like a marquee matchup, or to be like the Max Lewis, Brandon Pajemskis, the Drew Timmies, the Logan Johnsons, like Aiden Mahaney's, like you again, like up and down this league. Like really, it's like every single night there was something actually to kind of key in on. So we talk about like this depth in the WCC, and the NBA draft is coming up in just a few weeks. And so, who of the non St. Mary's guys do you kind of like look at of like might be one of the maybe the best NBA prospect, or who do you think is going to develop into that the best NBA player? I mean, there's a good number of guys who could going to make an impact at the next level.
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. I think I was able to kind of watch Max Lewis kind of as a young player, and certainly into what he turned into. And Obviously, they didn't have a great year, but I think he's a really high. I think he's kind of a can't miss talent. He's big, he can shoot, he's athletic, he's got great length. Um, he doesn't necessarily guard it great yet, but I think he's got great defensive potential. So I've always thought he was a really high level prospect, and I think he's certainly blossomed into that. Um, the Drew Timmy thing's interesting because he's been the best big man in the country for 3 years straight. Um, it's interesting that nobody will take a chance on him, so to speak, but he's really good. He's really good. And if you look at the modern day NBA and how they like to allow their five men to be decision makers and playmakers, he really excels in that role. So I think there's a path for him. Obviously, there's some defensive concerns and those things, and some athleticism concerns. But from a skill set and a production standpoint, I think Drew Timmy's is one of the best college players to ever play. So um, I would not bet against him as a pro.
It's funny. I was looking through the some of the draft combine numbers, and Timmy's actually like ranking best among some of the best players at the combine. So I think to your point, it seems like he's figuring out the way to carve his role into the league already.
For sure. No, he's easy to play with. He's one of those guys, like, he can hit you from any spot on the floor. He can hit you from the perimeter with his ability to bounce it, his ability to make passes, his ability to touch it in from 15 feet, and then obviously on the post, he's elite. But in pick and roll situations, offensively, he's a great decision maker, great finisher. So he's a really special player, and I think Gonzaga did a great job with him. And Pajimski kind of came out of nowhere and had a heck of a year. He's a really good player, and he's kind of one of those guys who just doesn't have any holes. He can shoot, he can pass, he can bounce it. He's big. He's competes. He's a great competitor. He plays hard. He rebounds. He's tough. He guards hard. I think he's certainly raising some eyebrows, and I think he'll continue to do that. If you look at kind of where the NBA is at and the type of teams that are winning, they're winning with guys like that. Like, they're winning with tough guys that can do everything, like the Austin Reeves, the Gabe Vincent, who I was lucky enough to be around for a year. But those kind of guys are getting minutes on playoff teams. So again, I think he's got a chance to be a really good player. And so, like you touched on, the league's in a really good place. There's really good players coming out of this league, and I don't see that stopping.
So one of the things, obviously, like Pajemski is an example of what the portal has been able to bring into the WCC, and St. Mary's this year was actually got was fairly lucky and was minimally impacted by the portal this past year. How has you and the coaching staff been able to navigate that, and what has been the team's approach to it the last couple of years? Because obviously, like the game has changed immensely with some of the new rules.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think for us specifically in the portal, it's something we want to keep a pulse on. We want to know what's going on, and um, but we really value doing a really good job with our guys. And if we do a really good job with our guys, and treat them fair and recruit them the right way and coach them hard and love them hard, I think hopefully we can keep them. And so we're lucky enough to keep the majority of our guys this year, and I think that's obviously a really good thing. And you know, we're trying to go a different route now. It's hard, and I get it. Like, you in college basketball, you gotta build a team every year, and a way to do that is through the portal. But for us, one of our deals is development, and being able to retain our roster and continue to develop within our program is super powerful at St. Mary's. And so we plan on trying to do that and continue to do that. And we've seen a few guys that have kind of been the benefit of that. Certainly in the past. I mean, you look at guys like Jock Landale, who weren't great their first 2 years, and their last 2 years they're all Americans. And so we've had numerous guys that have kind of have gone that way and gone that path that can kind of provide data for our guys and give them kind of an outlook as to how it can work. Obviously, in our program, it can work two ways, right? We've also had guys that have come in and hit it, the ground running, so to speak, like Mahaney or like Delhi or Patty and other guys. So it can go either way, but I think for us, the important thing is do a really good job with our guys, treat them well, coach them hard, win, and allow them to develop within our program. I think that's most powerful for us.
Going into the next year, obviously, like this is a team that is looks pretty well put together. We kind of already know like what at least seemingly we know kind of what pieces are going to fall where or whatnot. Going into next season, one of the things obviously like that we saw that I think most everyone is always starting to look at this year is the schedule. Like we're almost like starting to get excited about like, oh, who potentially could be on that schedule and everything else. And the one thing that I think everyone has noticed the last couple of years is that St. Mary's has scheduled like I think it's the impression of like now it's been a much harder schedule, a lot more of an exciting schedule the last couple of years. And like you talk about the net rating the last couple of years, and that's been you can see there's a clear like A to B to equal C sort of equation here. Uh, just kind of talk about like that's what Randy and all of you have kind of like what has been the mindset on that front? Because I mean, this past year you have like Houston as that top one, and then a lot of these solid mid-major programs that were going to be like top one, two in their leagues. While I think like someone's like it's not the most like the aren't the the like the crazy names or whatnot, like not big power conference names. There's still solid teams that you guys are able to kind of get on the schedule, and so yeah, just kind of go into that a little bit about like what that might look like this year. Obviously, you may not be able to say obviously too much about what the schedule's looking like, but yeah, where what's kind of like the strategy on that front?
I think Coach Bennett's done a really good job of giving us a chance to play for really high seeds in the NCAA tournament. And the only way you do that is by scheduling aggressively. And there's a balance certainly at St. Mary's. You can't necessarily get the Power Fives to come play you at a home and home. So you do have to buy some games, but I think Coach's strategy has been right on in terms of buying really quality opponents that are NCAA worthy opponents. And certainly we did that this year with Oral Roberts in Vermont and the Hofstras, and we had a really quality schedule. And you have to do that. You have to do that to give yourself a chance to play in the NCAA tournament. So I think that's the basic strategy. Obviously, you want those high profile games, and those are generally going to be on neutral sites. So the San Diego States, the Arizona States at time, you want those powerful high major, mid major plus, high major minus type, but quality NCAA programs. You want to play those games. You want to play against the best. So usually we do that. We do that on in neutrals. That's kind of the way we can get those games. But I think Coach Bennett's done a really good job of preparing our team for the rigors of the WCC and beyond, the NCAA tournament certainly, but also giving us a chance to play as a high seed in the NCAA tournament. And you do that through scheduling, and you got to win some quality games, and we've done that the last couple of years. So there's an art to scheduling, and I think Coach Bennett's done a great job with it.
All right, and so as we kind of like start to wrap up here, what now that you're kind of into the off season, obviously like you've had some exciting things happen over the last couple months. Now you've you've brought in I think your first child, right? Into
Yeah.
so what's going to be like your summer looking like? I'd imagine it's going to be spending a lot of time at home raising your girl. So like just kind of talk about like what are some things also like during the season that you don't get a chance to do that you're going to be able to kind of get to do for the next few months.
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing is, you know, pour into the things that really matter in my life. And so the first is my family. I have a young family now. My fiance, I'm getting married in a week. So my fiance was a
Congrats.
head coach at UC Davis women's soccer. So spend as much time as I can with her and my new daughter Wesley, who's 11 weeks old now. So do that, and certainly my mom, and try and pour into my family, obviously. And then I think to pour into this program at St. Mary's, I think we have some really quality players and some guys that are just great dudes, and I'm really excited about a lot of them. Like I think Duke is in his leadership role this year, and his game expansion is going to be something to see. Like I'm really excited for people to see what he looks like this year. He's going to be special. Obviously, we have guys like Joshua Jefferson, who's only scratching the surface. I think Augustus Marshallonis is a really, really good player, and he's going to take people by surprise. And Luke Barrett's and Harry Wessels and Chris Howells and our freshmen coming in. So try and pour into those guys as much as as much as I can and as much as we can as a staff. I think that's kind of what makes St. Mary's special is the off seasons. So make sure we do a great job with those guys. And then the other thing for me is just try and get away when I can. And I like to go to Santa Barbara once or twice a summer. I played at UC Santa Barbara, and I'm very familiar with the area, so I try and get out there once or twice a summer and just hang out and see friends and put my feet in the sand. So do a little bit of that. But it's pretty simple for me. It's do a good job with our players, do a good job in recruiting, do a great job with my family, and try and find some time to hang out and relax. But pretty simple guy. I love what I do, and I love where I'm at.
All right. Well, thanks, Justin, for hopping on, for taking some time to chat. We'll probably chat at some point later on in the off season. But congrats on your coming nuptials. Congrats on the birth of your girl, and we'll talk again soon.
Zach, thanks, man. Appreciate you and appreciate what you do for the WCC and the exposure that you give us with your podcast. Good man. Appreciate you.
Thanks.